stop being ashamed of being a salesperson. It's literally the greatest job in the world. And the more that you run from that word, the further into that deep, dark, weird well that you'll end up. And one day you'll wake up and you'll say, oh, sales didn't really work out for me, because you didn't embrace the altruistic nature of what sales truly is.
Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Reimagined podcast. We are stoked to have the one and only Dale Dupree with us. He is the co-founder and leader of the Sales Rebellion, comes from super humble beginnings, wandering the halls of his father's copier business. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. Creative by nature, absolutely crazy by heart, fueled by faith, in love with the art of living life. He absolutely seeks to change the landscape of sales by introducing experiences in place of the pitch, fellowship instead of negotiations, people over products, and community over commission checks. The better Dale on the show than my normal co-host, Mr. Dupree. Welcome, man.
Oh, man, that was like real hot, bro. That was real hot. That's probably the best introduction. I'm not just saying that. That's the best introduction I've had.
I did do radio for years. So put a mic in front of me, and I'm happy.
All right, I see what's happening here. So I'll have to step my game up for this episode in that case. Then
I mean, listen, if we're gonna start, and I'm gonna throw my Dale. Someone's going to make a soundbite out of that. I'm going to throw him off a little bit. But like, if we're going to start somewhere, like, you guys have these fucking hats on that I don't have. Like, I feel way out of the club right now. I don't have my hoodie on. Dale's not in a jacket. Like, what the fuck is going on today?
You got to be part of the rebellion.
It's a rebel thing, you know?
It's a rebel
thing. We're going to have to talk about that. We're going to have to talk about copiers. I love the crumpled letter. Let's dive in and let my Dale get back on script.
Awesome. Hey, Dale, appreciate you, man. You and I have known each other for a long time. We're going to start with reimagining revenue. You can't be a sales leader anymore. You're hot on the sales side. If there was another GTM function besides sales, who would you pick and why?
Marketing. That's an easy one. Is that a cop-out? Is that like too simple?
No. But
yeah,
why?
I mean, everyone lately has said RevOps, so I'm happy we don't have to fucking talk about. No, I love RevOps, but I'm happy that it's not like, oh, I do RevOps again because it's hot and cool.
Yeah, I'm not big on the trendy stuff anyway. I even with the way that I conduct my sales training or even run sales in my own unique way for myself, I'm pretty old school. You'll find that about most of my methodology, in that it's not even this identity of like being old school as much as it's just coming back to the basics and the foundations of the way that people interact with one another. And marketing is such a great opportunity for people, especially in the year 2023 when there's now functions like RevOps, as an example. Like, marketing has kind of lost its way in most organizations and entities. And I believe that getting back to creating experiences is the key function to drive revenue in the first place. And marketing has a lot of influence over that. Matter of fact, that's why I think sales and marketing being so aligned in their roles is very powerful for organizations, and not just as like, oh, marketing's bringing us a bunch of MQLs and we know what that means. Like, that's not what the kind of alignment I'm talking about. I'm talking about visionary alignment. I'm talking about this idea of, we want to do something different than everybody else, that we want to create impact, that we want, more for the community that we seek to serve. And by aligning with marketing, inside of any organization, if sales aligns with marketing, or anybody that's ultimately trying to start in a place of how do I build revenue, has to think, what is marketing? What does it mean to my organization? And how will we pull it off? So that's why I pick marketing.
So, wow. I feel like there's a whole show right there. So we'll try to dissect this a little bit. Marketing lost their way. You said. I wrote it down when you said it. I want to double click on that because I agree with you, and I'm curious if it's for different reasons. And you touched on a lot of it, but how has marketing lost their way with not just that it's 2023, not just that it's the pandemic? I think overall in general, and for the record, for everyone listening, I think this is much broader than a B2B tech marketing problem. I think this is a marketing problem.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know how everybody's remaking movies that were awesome, but everybody's like run out of ideas, and so they're like, oh, let's do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the 9th time. Like, that makes
Fast
sense.
and Furious, episode number 64.
Hey, listen, now Fast and Furious a little different, okay? There's like a cult following there, right? But
there is.
But again,
I just
like,
pissed off a lot of people.
For sure, there's people listening right now that are literally like trying to find your address so they can drive their cars out in front and do circles or whatever they call that, donuts or whatever.
52. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. Dale thought I was going to give his address out on the show.
Really, the idea here is it's more or less this imagination that we lack, and creativity that we lack in marketing these days. We're just rehashing old ideas, and like, there's a lot of people out there that'll listen to this kind of statement and they'll say every idea was done by somebody else. Well, that general thought drives me insane, because it's almost as if people have just given up and said that, oh, well, I've heard enough people on enough talk shows, you know, that have money or success or whatever say that, and so I'm just going to go and steal everybody else's ideas and make them mine. That's just pure garbage, in my opinion. And, you know, being influenced by something of the past is different than literally copying it all over again, or like rewriting the story when the story was already good. And the story
just because we've always done it this way, so why don't we continue to do it this way? I mean, we were having this conversation with someone this morning. It's like, well, why are we doing this? Well, because that's how we've done it before. It hasn't worked.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the underlying issue, is that a lot of people. So, like, if we want to really get down to the conspiracy theory of it all, which is my favorite, it's to say that, like, look, companies run off revenue. That's it. They don't run off people anymore. They don't run off ideas. They don't run off big goals and dreams and desires. They just run off money. That's all people care about. So at the top, they just say, hey, if you just keep, you know, shooting this stupid, repetitive, thick commercial and keep putting it on air in all these local markets over and over, and we spend hundreds of millions of dollars, we actually eventually start to see people buying things. And that's all they care about. Like, oh, somebody bought, you know, my product. That's all they really ultimately care about. But the problem is that most of those companies, you know, 10 years down the road, when they're monsters, they sell. Why are they selling? You know, that's like the real question I always have. Like, what's up with all these acquisitions? Well, it's because they've run out of ideas, and they have completely depleted the market. And ultimately, beyond that, they didn't build any relationships. So their marketing efforts, their sales efforts are so trivial and surface level that they lack any kind of conviction or philosophical outlook in the first place. And people don't connect with that in the long term. Eventually they grow out of it and they move on. So nobody cares. So this thing that I've bought for 10 or 15 years from this B2B company, you know, because for a while there, I felt like I might have had a relationship, or I did like what was going on here. Well, it's all fizzled out because I realized it's the same thing over and over again, and that it sucks, and that really all they're trying to do is just get my money. Yeah, and I think there's a whole wave and a generation behind, you know, the thought process of what I'm espousing here, but I don't think it's anything new. You know, that's the side of it that I think is should be the most compelling to people, is that, like, this is just going back to us as humans. Like, COVID opened a lot of people's eyes, is a great example, that sat in their house for 6 months, sometime in some places up to a year, and did nothing but like reanalyze their lifestyle and think about like what makes them happy. And that was like a literal shock for most people. You know, I've got friends that quit their jobs, live in third world countries now. I mean, crazy stories. But the bottom line being is that we need something new and something different. And people are starting to realize that we've not had anything new or different for a very, very long time. And so they're craving it.
And that brings me into like a lot of the stuff that the rebellion does, right? Because with all this automation and calling and emailing, like, that's not how you guys roll. You guys are more about relationships, personalization. Like, I love the stuff on the donut boxes, the crumple letter campaign. So talk a little bit about like the imagination, like you're back into your marketing world, the imagination you have, and how people can get out of their realm and like forget about the quantity, get about the quality, and about that relationship.
Because so, like, people, what's crazy is over the course of the last just about 2 years now, so right around 2021, this started happening more frequently, where people would write me and say, dude, how do I do this stuff that you're talking about when I've got to do 100 dials today? And now that I ran the sales rebellion at that point, it was a lot easier for me to kind of give a game plan and then also offer outlets like, here at the time the crumpled letter was free. So here, download this. There's some sample copy in there. It sucks, but that's kind of part of our stick and like what gets you to come back. Yeah, we can help you with a copy now, so I mean you gotta sell something at some point, right? So but the goal being like, let's give people breakthroughs for themselves. And I think what people found is that they would send a crumpled letter and they'd set an appointment, which we never said they could do. Right. I never told anybody like you'll set an appointment with a crumpled letter. I just showed the successes that people were having with it, or that I did as the copier warrior back in my sales, sword swinging days or toner swinging days, I guess, if you will. And so the idea here was just like, hey, I made this work for me extremely well. Maybe it'll work for you. But people were having massive success with it, and that caught fire. And the question itself is interesting, right? Because what sales rep goes to their boss and goes, hey, how do I stop making 100 dials a day? Probably none. And so most of these conversations are like taboo, private. Don't tell anybody I'm asking you this even. Well, now what I think is beautiful is like people are literally coming out of their shells and saying things in meetings. We were just in an on-site with 20 plus reps and their leaders, and one of them right in front of his bosses said, well, what? We're just going to make a minimal amount of calls with this letter campaign. We've got to do $100 a day. How are we going to do that? Very sarcastically.
What was the answer?
Well, the same thing that we tell everybody. And the number one reason why organizations bring us in is because they want better culture and more results. And so there's no math that works with $100 a day anymore. It's 1,000 first and foremost. It's 1,000 dials to get one appointment. That's it. Right. And the fact that can you guys imagine what that's going to be like in a couple more years?
Nope.
In a decade even, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny you say that though, because I was talking with a CEO client of mine today, Dale, and we were looking at calls to connects. And we define a connect, they define a connect as any conversation 120 seconds or more. And the rate was sub 3%. So to your point, and you're not, I could tell by your face, you're not surprised. None of us are surprised. But the initial answer was, well, we just have to find a way to dial more. No, that is not the answer. We don't just have to find a way to dial more. How do you stand out from the noise? How does sales and marketing work together to create, I'll very loosely use the word campaigns, strategies to stand out? How does the sales rebellion tell people to do things differently versus what, unfortunately, too many leaders do, which is just go make more fucking phone calls, please. Let's buy a parallel dialer today.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never said that in my life, by the way. So, and I, God forbid I ever do. Matter of fact, somebody on this call just in my life, as soon as you hear me using words like that, but look, there's a time and a place for everything. So we also tell people hey, if you want to do 1,000 dials a day, go ahead. That'd be our guest. It works. You'll get an appointment for sure. That's just part of the process, right? Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, the thing is that people have to risk and trust all at the same time when they step away from their comfort zone around this idea of metrics and call logs. So first and foremost, people have to be okay with their people only making 20 to 25 touches a week, because it takes time in the beginning, especially to ramp up something like a letter campaign as an example. So here's a great thought though. We go in the field with this same group that I'm talking about. We do the calls. We collectively did over 300 calls with everybody, just from splitting up into the territories, knocking on doors. We set 15 or 16 appointments. We wow. talked to hundreds of people in person. We got laughs. We got, oh my gosh, Kevin's gonna love this. Oh my gosh, Susie's gonna have a blast reading this. Lots of really good foundational elements around the basics of how a human builds something greater than just a transaction. And so if people can come back to that, man, I'm telling you right now, the world is aching for it. I've never, when we got to the meeting the next day, I actually had to tell everybody in the room this is the best success we've ever had. because it was so phenomenal what we had just experienced. Matter of fact, some of these guys found deals in the copier space. It takes an average of 42 months to find a deal. Like that's expiring, right? Yeah. So it can take up to 4 years to find, like to have a lease expire, like when you walk into somebody's office. Now, that lease can be bought out immediately, right? But like that's not easy. Right. So you don't just walk into places that are purchasing right now or that want to meet with you. That's not luck either. That's literal. Those are the literal statistics that, the average lease is 42 months and that your market is churning at a specific rate. And so you have to just kind of be active. But here's the thing that nobody thinks about. Well, what if we could just talk to these people? Like what if we just got back to that basic concept? Like what if when we walked in the front door that someone said, hey, yeah, we do have copiers. We got 17 of them and they're all, this segment, so the rep can say to himself, that's $10,000 a unit. And they can say, and I know we have 2 years left on the lease and Bob's the guy I'm going to give your letter to. Like now everything has changed because we've been calling Bob on our parallel, coax, whatever the hell we're calling it for the last century, and nobody is picking up the freaking phone. Like Bob's not picking up the phone. Okay. So the issue here is that we're not even talking, like, how is this even activity at this point? This is what drives me insane. How are we literally letting people come in our offices Monday through Friday to do mindless, pointless, and literally effortless work? Because there's no effort anymore either. You just literally hit a button and sit there.
Yeah.
Ever feel like keeping your CRM updated with call notes is a nightmare? You're not alone. Most sales leaders would rate their CRM hygiene a 4 out of 10. Badly maintained CRMs lead to inaccurate data, missed opportunities, and a messy sales pipeline. Not ideal, right? Introducing Attention, your sales rep's personal Iron Man suit. It transforms CRM upkeep, automating it with AI, and freeing your reps to sell, not enter data. Attention fills your CRM with a single click, drafts custom follow-ups, and gives real-time assistance. Isn't it time your CRM worked for you? Ready to upgrade your sales? Visit www.attention.tech.
It's like dial. There's no curiosity. It's email. It's dial. How does it translate?
We have a special guest who's joined us, by the way.
See this.
First
Who's
time appearance. Say hello and introduce yourself, sir.
Hi.
Oh, come on. You got to do a better voice than that. Zachary, meet Dale and Dale. Zachary wanted to, his first question was, do I get paid for coming on the show? No, you don't get paid. You just get to say you have the best.
Yes, he does.
Don't
Dad's
tell
gonna
him
pay
that.
you, Zachary.
Oh, look how happy you just made this kid. That's why Dale leads the sales rebellion. He just gets to come say he has the best hair out of everyone. So are you going to hang with us for the show or are you disappearing?
Do I get paid?
Dale, does he get paid?
Hey,
Yo, you get
we'll
to have a
see
really
what-
fun conversation if you hang out. How's that
We'll
sound?
see what you add to the show. You could leave at any time. All right. So
Dale,
go ahead.
Dale, how does the crumple letter campaign or any of these translate into like a B2B? Like we talk about copiers and how like 48 months just to get in the door. Like let's translate that into a lot of the audience that may be listening on the B2B tech side. Like
they would die. The B2B tech audience would die if we told them it's going to take 48 months to get a deal. Not like
and how
I
can
respect
they
the shit out of everyone who comes from copiers because it's the hardest sale on the planet. Like if you could sell copiers, you could sell anything.
I agree. I might be a little biased, but so like let's rewind real quick. So let's come back to this identity of like the average lease being 42 months, okay, and that your market share is going to have like a 70% share or 30% share, whatever the number is. I just did it backwards there, but the thought is that like instead of trying to get lucky, if I can have these conversations that we talked about, here's what happens. What literally happens is that the next day, Friday, with this same group of people, this guy pulls out his phone and goes, read this email, and holds it to me, and it's from the VP of the organization saying, I got your letter. They passed it along to me. I love it. I'd like to buy from you. Matter of fact, I'd like to buy this month from you. I'm having problems and I need your help. So here's the thing that I think applies across the board. So we're talking to the tech space, which, like, don't make me throw up in my mouth too many times during this call, guys. So like using things like parallel dialer, terms like that, or like tech space. Like the tech space to me is losing its way. from my perspective that like it has for quite some time at this point, that it is literally a place where I go start a business selling some kind of software, and the only thing that I'm focused on is becoming a unicorn and selling it, 7 different ways, and then going on the internet and talking about it and how cool I am. When really I just had a good idea, and a bunch of people worked really hard for me to get it to where it is today. Right. So we've lost again this.
Pause. No, this is important, because a lot of founders listen to this show, right? The founders are our ICB. And for every founder listening, what you just said is true. Don't be that asshole. You can't. Listen, have that great idea, have that vision. That's super cool. And we need B2B tech founders, but don't be the asshole that then goes on LinkedIn, like your point, and talk about this great thing that you did and you turned into a unicorn when it was 5, 10, 15, 20, 200, 500 people who did it for you. Recognize, create the culture, the great working environment, and recognize the work, the dedication, the sweat, the tears that people put in to make your dream a reality. Sorry, I had to interject there.
Well said. So to the point, if I am more focused on my people, I'm listening to them, and when I'm having conversations with them and they're telling me things like, hey, I'm setting a good amount of appointments, but no one shows up for the demos. Or hey, like I'm talking to a lot of people, but no one wants to set an appointment in the first place. That we can really literally boil that down to this idea that all we're doing in that space right now is being transactional with every single moment that possible. Even the people that are out there doing it right, or to my knowledge and the extent of who I know in the industry, are still being told, like in the midst of personalizing things. I hate that word, by the way. It's such a buzzword right now. Like giving people a better experience. Let's call it that. That their bosses are coming to them and going, hey, great job this month, but you got to make more calls and send more emails. Like this is still like a thing that's happening. Like instead of us saying, hey, how are you impacting the community right now with these outcomes that you're achieving? What are people saying? What kind of feedback are we getting as an organization? Like, are people coming to us and going, hey, like I signed up with Dale Z and I'm super happy with what he's done for my business and how he's helped me in my life and my lifestyle because of how that's translated from the success of my organization to begin with. So, but instead of thinking about like building happiness inside of our organizations and the communities that we seek to serve, like it's a simple thought, right? But instead we're just like, how hard can we hit the metrics in unrealistic ways, slave drive people into that process, and then again, become a unicorn, sell 7x, whatever the hell they put on their profile, and go out and be a guru on LinkedIn and make, money from whoever's sponsoring the content. So instead, if we just got back to this idea of like what a copier rep, as an example, has to put up with, which is this idea that in 90 days you will fail. That's what most copier companies will tell you. Like, hey, it's great to have you here. We'll probably fire you in 90 days. And I watched that for most of my career. I literally would watch people come in and just churn out faster than you could blink. But if we give people better experiences in the copier space, we're like, that's the churn, right? For an employee, if we can give a prospect the hardest person to sell, right? They say that, copiers are in the top 3 of commodity sales, right? So if we in the top 3, if we can just give somebody a better experience and it changes the outcomes, bro, imagine what it's going to be like for the B2B space in the tech world when they start adopting to this more. And listen, we've had reps from, I could name some companies, I probably shouldn't, but we've had reps from the tech space all over the place come through our system and program, and they've proven it as well too. So, but here's the thing is that like if the rep is doing it, it doesn't matter. It has to be the leadership saying, please do this, and let's do it long term, not just for a few months before we make you do something else.
You cannot say that loud
please
enough.
Do this. Yeah, please do this.
It starts up top. Dale doesn't do anything unless I tell him to do it. It's fucking frustrating.
and to do it for a period of time, right? Like it's the period of time that you have to be able to like withstand it. Maybe you do stuff in parallel, like go make your 1,000 dials, but do this in parallel so you can do an A/B test in real life, and see the work. So you were just talking about generating value, creating value. One of the things we love to do is give back to the community and the audience. You said you were going to give something to the audience, Dale. What is that you'd like to give back?
Yeah, I just wrote a kid's book, so I'm gonna give 5.
You
kids
say that
books
so
away.
casually. Come on, I just wrote a. Hey, it's Wednesday. I just wrote a kid's book. Come on, man.
It has been a dream.
Where the yes.
I probably about 2014, I started to write an autobiography about my dad. I still have it, by the way. I will release it at some point. It's called Tales of a Copier Salesman, Blood, Sweat, and Toner. And it was really like my stories of working with him, and then also like the things I found out about him while I worked with him, like that he had done that was just absolutely incredible, and that I thought people needed to know about. And you know, like some things have gotten in the way. Like we wrote How to Start a Sales Rebellion, my co-founder and I, Jeff Viegas, which Z has a not for resale copy of. So put that thing on eBay in a couple of years, you'll make like maybe $5 back. You know, it'd be great. But you know, so in the midst of all that, I said to myself, you know, hey, I really still want to tell my dad's stories. But one of the things that really drove me was he has a lot of grandkids that he never met. There's 11 of them in total in the family now. And he met about 5 of them in total. And so in my head, I thought, well, how could like I still do the dad autobiography thing, but also like introduce him in a whimsical and fun way to the kids that never really got to know him. So the book is actually about Dale the sales whale. My mom used to call me Dale the whale when I was growing up. And then there's a narwhal named Owen, who is my younger brother. So in the book, they're not brothers in the book. They're just like acquaintances. But Dale teaches Owen sales. The whale teaches the narwhal. And it's fun. They go to the bottom of the ocean. They do a bunch of very rebellious things, like crumpled letters make a guest appearance. In the book, it's pretty funny too. I think it's broken bottles, if I recall correctly. It's broken bottles with like a message in them. It's pretty fun. But the end of the book is the most meaningful piece. I pay tribute to my father in this book, and ultimately pay tribute to like, what is sales? Sales is service. Like the thing about sales that we've lost sight on is that sales is one of the most fulfilling jobs in the world because it allows us to connect deeply with people by helping them. Because by helping them, they help us in the process.
If you do it right, though, that's the thing. If you're doing sales right and you're seeking to solve problems and you're tying back what you're selling to needs and you're legit trying to help someone, a prospect, solve a problem, you're doing that. You're helping people and you're helping them grow their business, expand their business, scale their business, whatever it happens to be. Where it goes wrong is when it's, how do I get my big fat commission check and I just get commission breath? And it's like, I don't care if this helps you or not. You need my product and I'm going to twist and turn my words to make it seem like you need it, but you really don't. What you said is very important. If you're doing sales the right way, you're helping people. And it used to be, I remember my father was in sales, and I always said I was never going to get in sales because and I've told this story before, he sold timeshares. It was sleazy, it was dirty, it was disgusting. I was like, I will never be in sales. And sales has this connotation of like, what do? You don't want to say sales, right? We need to get back to a place where you could be proud for, what do you do? I'm in sales, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I love that. My man Chuck that I just met, shout out to my man Chuck. I won't out his company, but maybe he'll listen to this. Maybe I'll send it to him. Who knows? We just had this conversation of like, why do people walk away from the word sales so much? And really, honestly, it's because of, as I call it, or as I phrase it, or the term that I use for it is the sins of the father, which is that the past has really haunted the present and the future of sales because of all the bad stories. I mean, guys, for real, like watch The Wolf of Wall Street. The thing is that yes, it's Hollywood, but the stories about what these people were doing to get people to buy penny stocks was wrong. It was illegal and it was real. And the idea here is that ultimately this happens to people on a daily basis. And so overturning that stereotype is important. But this generation, my generation, the generation behind me, they listen, all of y'all, if y'all are out there chilling and hearing this, stop being ashamed of being a salesperson. It's literally the greatest job in the world. And the more that you run from that word, the further into that deep, dark, weird well that you'll end up. And one day you'll wake up and you'll say, oh, sales didn't really work out for me, because you didn't embrace the altruistic nature of what sales truly is, but instead you just continue to perpetuate the stereotypes.
Let's put the sales let's put professional back into sales. Just like Orlando
aren't
City.
we fucking cliche?
Just like Orlando City, those boys are professional soccer players, right, Dale? And the reality is they practice every day. We have to practice and make sure that professionalism comes through. So
Truth. Speaking of Orlando City, just like as like good luck for tonight, because I'm a superstitious ex-athlete. They can clinch the playoffs if they tie or beat New York City, and they're the best away record on the season. I'm just saying this stuff to put it out there because we're about to get it tonight, baby. And by the way, when I come to town for the playoffs, Dale Z, we're definitely going. Do you think Adam will meet us for a game?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll make him come up.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Well, then it's on like Donkey Kong.
I've been on that coast more than you've been on this coast. Hell yeah, I'll go, man. Absolutely. I love it.
Orlando's in the middle, kind of.
How long does it take you to get to Orlando?
2.5.
Does it really?
Yeah.
All right. Orlando's in the middle. He wins. Let it be noted to everyone listening, this is the very first time Dale Z has been right in a conversation with me. The very first time. All right. Dale D, let's end with some rapid fire. You cool with that?
Let's
you don't have
go.
a choice, but I mean you do. You could leave if
You're
you
gonna
want
like the first question.
Let's go.
All right. What song would best describe your revenue strategy?
Probably anything by 3-6 Mafia that talks about like dealing drugs and like making money.
I love it. You don't have one song? You don't have one like theme song you come out to?
No, I don't. I like, because I'm a musician. Y'all forgot that I'm a musician. So you asked me the worst question to ask a musician. So, but I just got cheeky with the answer and is like, well, you know, hip hop describes how to make money better than anybody else.
Awesome. If you had a crystal ball, what revenue strategy is a trend right now, but it's going to be like mainstay in the next 12 to 18 months?
I mean, if I'm being biased, I would say getting back to this identity of direct mail, how it works effectively for your prospecting efforts. But I would say probably more like 3 to 4 years. I don't know about 18 months. That is being very generous. But I do believe that we will see a time in our lifetime in sales, definitely, and within the next 3 to 4 years, where it will become a mainstay and it will be part of the strategy of outreach for outbounding and through marketing strategies as well too. It will be one of the main ways to get attention.
I love it.
Absolutely. Earlier in the show, you said that it's tomorrow. You're in marketing now. You're not in sales anymore. It's tomorrow morning. What's the very first thing that you're going to do?
Oh, I'm whipping up a whole batch of rebel letter campaigns, crumpled letters, pre-burned letters, coffee stain letters. I'm throwing those bad boys in my back pocket, and I'm grabbing a couple of the outbound salespeople and saying, hey, let's go do this together and go build some relationships out in the field. And that's how I'm changing the game.
I love it.
I love it. Let's change it up, Dale. Close us out.
Dale, thanks so much for joining us for the show, man. I appreciate you. You know, is Dale squared on this show today, so Adam's outdone. And let the people know where they can engage with you, chat with you, connect with you.
Yeah, easy to find me, everybody. You can just Google Dale Dupree and pick the social channel you like. LinkedIn is the one where I do daily content. That's linkedin.com/IM/copy warrior. But I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, at Dale Rebel Leader. You can also find at Sales Rebellion on all social platforms as well, too. Join our movement, find our free Slack community, send crumpled letters, be a rebel.
I love it. Maybe a future sponsor of the Revenue Reimagined podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know. Crumpled Letters, sponsored by Crumpled Letters.
And
Dale
go get this book
D.
If you want to be a rebel.
Dale D, certainly not Dale Z, because I got to put up with you more than I care to. But Dale D, thank you so much for joining the show, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, gentlemen. I appreciate you both.
Thanks, man.